So I'm Christopher Darby. I founded my accountancy practice about 10 years ago. To start with, I was with a franchise. This was end of 2009, so we were still in a recession then, and a lot of people were looking for work. So I sort of got into that. Basically, the way I did things was the old-fashioned way. So I would ask for the set of accounts. Quite often it was being done through telemarketing, which I hated. And you go there, the only way you get the work was by undercutting and say, your accountant is charging you X, I'll do it for 50% less or 20% less or whatever. It's not a good way to do things. It did get results. It got me a basic sort of income, but it wasn't really ideal. So I took a decision a few years back to get out of that franchise, which is not easy. So if you're in a franchise or thinking about doing one, think very carefully, is all I would say about it. There was a complicated pricing model, and what that meant was that you would go to see them, then you'd have to go back and see them with the price, which is hopeless. So I sort of started quoting off the hoof, which again, it can say increase the fee income, but didn't get across, what the value was. I'd say to them, you need to do a VAT return, tax return, etc. Sort of the basic products, as I call them, and then quote a price. And if they looked uncomfortable, okay, well, I'll do it for 10% less. This is where a lot of accountants work, and I would absolutely say to you, don't do that. If you are doing that currently, don't do it. The pain of it was, I sat there, I remember sitting there one afternoon, having done X payrolls and whatever, and thinking, hang on, I took 3 years to become a chartered accountant. This should be giving me more cash. I'm not putting it into my pension. I've not, I wasn't quite in the thing of having to look at my bank balance before I went to the supermarket, which I know some people have been in that, but it was a little bit like that. And I was stuck in a franchise where if you ever wanted to do anything, you'd have to get their permission. And basically, if you did go to them and say, I want to do X, then they would say, great idea, and they would send it, but they would then effectively nationalize it into the franchise and charge you for it. So I decided I don't want to be doing that. It's sort of back to 2015. So I was looking at various things. I looked at my firm's app, and again, all these people told me you'll get fabulous results. And when I said, well, will you stand behind them? So if it doesn't work, will you refund me? Oh, well, no, because you have to do X, Y, Z. And I came across a guy called Steve Pipe, who was just great, because he really challenged. He did a session and he challenged me, and actually made me feel extremely uncomfortable, because the first thing he said was, you've got to increase your prices. You go, if I increase my prices, I'll lose clients. And as a result of listening to that, I went on the masterclass and then joined AVN at that point. Unfortunately, I was initially unwell at that point with some family issues and so on, and I didn't sort of get to implement it. But I persevered with it. And so the main thing I'm talking about is the Time's Up piece of software that you get when you join AVN. And this is really, really useful, because it gives you confidence to talk about price and choice in a sales meeting with a prospective client. Now, the way I use it, one of the things as well I learned from Steve Pipe is to ask them about 5 or 6 things and say, where are you now on these issues? And then where would you like to be? And where would you really like to be? So now with all new clients, I sit down and run through this. If the client shows absolutely no interest in this, they're probably not the sort of client you want, unless you want a lot of people paying 300 quid for a tax return once a year. To get money out of that, you're going to have to do your 100 just to get 30k, and then you have to pay other costs. So they might be okay to start with, but they're not your ideal sort of clients. So you can tell instantly by showing them that, and instantly you get them to sit up. You get the client to sit up and say, oh, that is interesting. And you can then tell, 1, if they're interested, and 2, if they're interested in your service. And I can pretty much guarantee you that you will be, if they're looking at a number of accountants, as they do, because they don't know who's a good accountant, who's not, that will be a thing that will be in your favour. And several clients have said that to me since I've been doing that. Yeah, you showed an interest in my business, which nobody else did. So then after that, price is less of an issue. You've already demonstrated some value just by doing 6 simple questions. So then once you've got them on that, you say, okay, well, this is what we're going to work to, and I'll show you. Then you say, and I will show you. You're not selling. I'll show you some of the tools that we have got. And now, particularly during this sort of COVID-19 period, it is sort of, you can give them a try and see rather than a money back guarantee. So, well, look, if you, I understand things are difficult, so we are helping. And again, you can give them what's called board view meetings, kind of strategy session for them. So what you then find out by asking them 6 questions, and basically you ask them what's the turnover, what's their profit, what money are they taking out of the business. That's critical, because if they haven't got any profit, they won't be able to take anything out. How many hours are you working? And then say, what would you like to be? And how many days holiday, and how many uninterrupted holidays? So the things that you sort of get asked, that you ask yourself when you join AVN, you're asking your clients as well. And these are human issues. And then say, is there anything else that you want to put on here that we can come back to, that where you're wanting, where you want to get to from where you are now? So that instantly opens up a really interesting conversation. You've got their attention. It's not just, you need to do this, that, and the other, and here's the price, which again is not particularly valuable for them. It's just the kind of the keep out of jail services, which are coming under increasing fee pressure. So the great thing about the Time's Up software is, one, I just say, start using it. Even if, and don't worry if you're not doing all the 7 things that are in there to start with. Start on it and practice with it, and then have a software session with Emma or Jenny from AVN and get to know it, so that you can add in other services. It's nice and flexible, and if there are certain things you think, oh gosh, I know that client is too small, but I want them to grow, you can then reduce that price and tell them, okay, for your first 12 months, given we're in a recession, we will do it for X, but then it will be going up. So you prepared them that you are helping them out. So Time's Up, what's great about it, it gives them the choices. So there's a 3, 4, and 5 star, and they can choose whichever one they want. Now, what I've found is that it's best to do it in person, but at the moment you can't. So I've been doing a lot of these over Zoom. And actually, I found early on that it was more tricky than normal to be showing them the kind of the full Time's Up screen. So what I did was I said, well, look, I'll run you through what the available services are. And then, because I know we've only got a small screen, it's difficult to go through everything. But what I will send you, I will send you 4 proposals. Now, you might think there's only 3 if there's a 3, 4, and 5 star, but you send them 4 proposals. And the way I've been doing it is saying to them, I found that recently that a lot of what comes up is people's bookkeeping. Oh, bookkeeping is such a nightmare, and my accountant sort of demands this, and I have to do it on a spreadsheet. And I say, well, get away from those, get onto the cloud. And you can bring them on with a product like QuickFile, which is a nice entry level. It's got no app, it's got no, but when it gets to a certain size, you're going to be paying no more than £2 or £3 a month, as opposed to £30 for Xero or QuickBooks. So I've been bringing those on there and saying, well, okay, what I'll do is I'll give you a training session, well, you can have a training session with me, and it's X £100, and we'll have 2 hours to go for it, and we'll run through everything. I'll show you how to use it. And if you need 5 or 10 minutes on that, I won't charge you, which is a great way of saying, again, giving them something that you're showing that it's valuable, and therefore you're pricing it, and then you run through that. And I found that that's really helped them to get on top of where they are and take a big stress thing away. Cash flow certainly is an issue there, but it will, I think, continue to be for the foreseeable future. And by doing that, you've identified what they really want. So in your Time's Up, there's a nice section in there that says you can add extra things. So I'm now putting bookkeeping in there, and how to get off a horrible spreadsheet onto something that's backed up, that's reliable, that does everything for them, and is actually pleasant to use rather than some of the ways that people work. And remember, the great thing is, the reason I say I go back to doing the 4 is I show them on one of them, and I usually use the 3 star because people are very, very tight for money and just can't afford necessarily to go on the 4 or the 5 star yet. I then say, well, if you get your books and records into a really good state, this is how much you could save. And one of the things I remember when I was with the franchise was, I remember other accountants complaining that the client would say, well, if I make it slightly easier, can you cut the price? Now, they were already on too low a price anyway, so their tendency was say no. So it still came in a shabby form. But get them onto a proper accounting system, and you can give them the year-end checklist. You can run through that with them, and preparing the accounts then is a relative doddle. and you can spend more time looking at are there tax savings that you can make, and then introduce those other services as you go along. So my sort of recommendation is that without the quickly on a couple of examples, tangible examples recently, on my overall client sort of fee structure, even with people just buying the fairly basic 3-star package at the moment, I'm quoting twice what I was before. So for the new clients, I pretty much doubled the price. And I also used it on an existing client who'd been a bit naughty about paying, and that was really my fault for not having enforced it at the start and allowing a bit of COVID-19 excuses. So I turned around one day and said, look, I said, you're not getting this stuff that's I explained all the things back to him, and I said, you haven't paid for it, I'm not doing any more work until. Anyway, it was about to get a bit tough, but then when he did pay up, and then I said, well, look, you've breached the agreement. And I said, and by the way, what you told me 6 months ago, we said we'd review it, and I virtually doubled the price. And I did get initially, oh, can you cut the price? And I said, well, let me explain to you how that price is made up. So I took him through all the things that were in Time's Up and said, you're getting this, you're getting that. And I said, you also have quite a bespoke service because you get assistance from the DWP because of a disability. You need this due by the 10th of the month, you need that due by the 20th, you need this, and you need that. So there's a lot of stuff there. I said, plus, you send me the info, you don't spend everything through the main business bank account. You do a lot of stuff to your personal bank account, and then send me a text file, which I have to convert into a spreadsheet to get into the accounting system. I said, if you could eliminate that, I said, then we could actually take something off. So again, you're giving them the consequences of the way they are, and you're showing them with the software how they can influence it. So they feel in charge. And once you've done that, the price becomes less important because you're showing them again the absolute value of what you're doing. I also put in there as a guarantee if it's late and it's my fault, and that is written in both the proposal and it's written into the engagement letter and explains it. And I also say if you incur a penalty because I'm late and it's my fault, then I will pay that penalty and I will give you that month's fee back. Again, that's really it shows that you're standing behind your product, because I've had a number of people say, oh, they were late and I had to pay a fine and the accountant didn't pay it. Now, to me, if it's your fault, you pay it. You just, and you use that as a learning thing. The other thing with the guarantee is so far nobody's ever called on it. And if you're frightened about doing that because you think people will take the Michael out of it, well, if on the 3rd month they do it and it's you think that they are taking the piss, then you can turn around and say, look, we need to have a conversation about how we do things better. And if it happens in the 4th month, then you probably need to remove them as a client, downgrade them to a D client and exit them to an accountant who's prepared to put up with that sort of thing. So final recommendation is if you're unsure about AVN, go to the masterclass, because that will open your eyes to the sorts of ways that you can work and how you can significantly increase your enjoyment of your work, which is very important. But most importantly is have more money in your pocket. It's great, nobody likes having too little money in their pocket. Just to have enough money in your pocket at the end of the month, and then to be thinking about things like, you need to plan for a pension. If you're an AVN practice, by increasing your turnover and your profitability, your practice is going to become more valuable. So you're not going to be in that horrible position of thinking, I can't retire. Because, supposing you have to retire and it's not making you much money, you're not going to have much pleasure there, nor are you going to have much pleasure along the way. And my view is that most accountants are still undercharging for their services. People are undercutting each other. So find the right clients who are going to value you, go into AVN, look at the ways of doing that, invest in it, and just start using the tools as soon as possible. The worst thing that happens is the client says no. Well, then you can have a discussion about it. So that's pretty much it.